This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Royden Ogletree, who is just looking resplendent today.
Resplendent.
Yeah. Royden at KWTX. Royden's just gotten a promotion.
Yeah.
So he's very excited. He's already at least slapped Garrett one underling, I think.
Yeah, no,
I mean, as a rite of passage, not out of any kind of maliciousness, just because that's what you do.
Yeah, even though Chad Votherine has been handling most of the responsibilities while they try and transition me to this new thing, I've slapped him a couple of times.
I mean, look, Chad's a great guy, but, again, you have to, establish those the dominance and the boundaries of This is how it is now that I'm the boss. I'm sure Darby, threw a couple kidney punches at you a couple times.
Yeah.
Just to let you know. I mean, that's how you enforce yourself as the new boss.
Yeah, ask Chris Williams a lot. I mean, he has stories to tell. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. So, no.
Darby was very benevolent with her time.
But
Not
Royden,
benevolent, benevolent.
yeah. Well, it was both. Like, she was like,
The yin and the yang.
Yeah. Some days she ruled with an iron fist. Some days she brought snacks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it is a very important day in America. That is the first day that we see the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, a thing that's going to cause a lot of people anxiety staying up tonight, really waiting on results.
Yeah.
Results-based polling and years, months and months of data going into this as well, all for the most important TV show tonight. Real quick, why are they doing that?
I think it just worked out that way.
Yeah,
I mean, it's always been on a
weird
Tuesday. You can't do
counter program.
But you know what's weird about it is that we won't know what the final playoff rankings are for a month.
Yeah.
We also may not know
the other
who
thing.
the president is for a month.
Right.
Like, that's our world now. So, we could find out on the same day, here's what we think is going to happen on both of them.
And Georgia plays a big role.
Yeah, just such a weird thing. But I did, Royden, want to talk to you first about Baylor and TCU.
Sure.
I did not. Garrett and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we did not dive full in. We had so much stuff to do before yesterday's show. I mean, a lot of production work. So we did a shorter show, and I saved some of it for you. Because you were
had
in
to run
Spain.
some election interference.
Yeah, there was all these things. Yeah, so I did. I had to vote 74 times. It's a lot.
It's a lot of polling places.
It's a lot. I mean, you have to hop around. I have to change. I had to dye my hair, re-dye my hair, undye my hair.
Yeah.
Mustaches, on top of a mustache, glasses, different clothes.
2 kids in a trench coat.
Accents.
Took a lot of work. You're
I'm
basically Fletch.
I'm here to be voting.
You're basically Fletch.
Yeah. Yeah. For the Trump. That's what I said. Okay, this doesn't track. But anyway, all of that. But no, we had a lot to do. So I didn't get to really talk about it that much. Royden, when were you a student at Baylor?
From 2012 to December of 2015.
So the glory days.
I mean, peak glory days.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of them, actually.
Yeah, you had 4 good years of football, which is something no one has been able to said before or since.
Yeah, the only way that I could have made it better, I graduated early. The only way that I could have made it better was been there 1 year early for the Heisman campaign. But other than that, I experienced, the exact peak of Baylor football.
Yeah. I would say you did.
And then got out before the inevitable crash.
Yes. But you were there for 61-58 as a student. You were there for the last time they beat TCU multiple times in multiple years.
Yep.
And 3 out of 4 years, as a matter of fact. 11 wouldn't have been your first year, but 11, 13, and 14. So normally I would get on this show and dog a team miserably for rushing the field on a 4-4 team. But I know intimately how much these students and fans have suffered over the last couple years, and particularly over the last decade, suffered at the hands of TCU, including some TCU teams that were not good.
Right.
And Baylor teams that actually were kind of good and then still lost to them inexplicably.
Yeah.
Or a TCU team that was great that you had on the ropes that you let come back.
And it would have like rearranged your season, like that kind of thing.
Would have ruined theirs.
Yeah.
And kicked a field goal with a timeout in their pocket, or it could have But they just walked down on the field very slowly. All right, snap the ball, kick it, good. We got plenty of time. Nothing. I mean, those are the things that you have had to endure as a Baylor fan and alum.
Right.
So I did feel I was actually sitting in the stands on Saturday night, not in the press box. Oh. And you could feel the emotion of, oh my God, this just happened. And I turned to my friend John's son Andrew, who was sitting with us, and Andrew was like, "Are they going to rush the field?" And he's like, I don't know. And then, like, the next thing I know, he's gone. We were sitting in the end zone. He ran all the way over to the student section.
That's a funny story. See you later.
Yeah. No, I think so. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Gone. And he wanted to go down and get there. And it was a great moment for Baylor. It's not like they tore down the goalpost or anything. Yeah. Basically, it was like everybody get here and then file out of the stadium. It was a pretty short field storming by field storming standards.
Right.
But from your perspective, what was that a double whammy weight lifted for a lot of things? Is that Dave Aranda took not the full monkey off his back, but most of it. Like if it's on there, it's barely hanging on, just pinching onto his clothes. And not only that, like the TCU thing is kind of at least over for now, because there's the here we go again that happened about 3 times during that game the other night.
Yeah, it has to be for the reasons that you just mentioned, and I think not. If not for the main reason of, like, they'd won, 6 times in a row, and they'd won, 9 out of the last 10 times or something like that?
Yeah.
It'd become as close as this rivalry is historically or was previously, it had become a really one-sided thing, and Baylor likes to hold themselves up in that TCU light, and there's a lot of fan arguments online. I mean, but if you just look at it objectively, TCU had more success than Baylor simply by the fact of making that national championship game. And you really, all the arguments you could make about oh, well, we won the Sugar Bowl, or, we being Baylor won the Sugar Bowl, and we've had this success with Aranda, and it had sort of tanked, especially with the season that you had last year, 2 seasons in a row of really failing to get where you wanted to be, and then this year starting out the way that it did. And really, if you just had any conversation with any TCU avatar online, it's like, guys, you just hadn't beat us. It really comes down to wins and losses. You just had not beat them. And it is a weight lifted in that way. I would like to see, you can't have everything all at once, obviously, but I would like to see, as a Baylor fan, them get this back to a more even-sided rivalry where you're not just losing at home and on the road and in ridiculous fashions, and make it to where it's like, okay, well, Baylor won 3 out of 5 years, and then TCU won a couple, and then the back and forth. We need to get back to that where it's been since the 1800s, I think. And that will go a long way into facilitating one of the few real blood feud rivalries that we have left in modern college football.
Yeah.
Of course, now Texas and Texas A&M are starting to will play again, and OU went over there, so they continue that rivalry. But it's one of the few that, like, in conference sort of long-standing rivalries that one has this passion behind it still that we're slowly losing in college football. And I appreciate that there's still that animosity there, and there's still this big time feeling of jubilation or relief or whatever you want to call it when a team wins. And I kind of tweeted, like, rushing the field cringe the other night. I actually had a couple drinks, so I said rising the field instead.
Yeah.
But somebody knew what I was talking about and quote tweeted me, and I was like, I immediately changed my tune. I was like, you know what? You're right, actually. I shouldn't be that cringe about it online. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's a little act like you've been there before, but kind of they haven't.
They hadn't. Think about the students the last 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
And what they've gotten to experience at home in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Until
4. Yeah.
Until the last home game, they hadn't won one.
Right.
In a long time.
Yeah.
And in the Big 12. And the only games they won were Air Force and, the guarantee game and all of that. And one of those guarantee games wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like, one of them wasn't like Texas State, but like one of the ones you won also not great.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is so that's the pain that they've had the last couple of years. And it started almost immediately after they won the Big 12.
Yeah.
So they had this, oh my gosh, we just had maybe the best, most complete team, in my opinion, the best team in Baylor history. Like, probably the absolute top to bottom best team, because even those 13 and 14 teams that were here that were great, guess what they didn't do? They didn't go win the bowl game. Yeah, they went and lost. They won first one got destroyed by Blake Bortles in UCF. The next one blew the game against Michigan in the Cotton Bowl. Mm-hmm. So they didn't get to do that. And this team finished it and went and beat an SEC team in SEC country in the Sugar Bowl. And that was a huge, huge win for them.
That was my thing over the weekend, too. And I don't want to dive too far off into this because it can get real nasty. There was a real big potential for there to be a lot of weird energy in that stadium. They didn't invite the coaches back for a number of reasons we don't have to go over, and everybody knows why they couldn't do that. And people want to act incredulous online about why they didn't, but deep down in your heart why they couldn't invite the coaches back onto the field. In fact, one of the coaches was standing over there on the opposite sideline.
3 of the coaches.
So that was a weird energy. Mm-hmm. There's the whole separate celebration at George's that happened over the weekend that had the coaches there, and players were wearing, some, not all, were wearing Coach Art Browell's t-shirts in the middle of the field. And it threatened to be this really weird energy if you lost.
Yeah.
And like I said, it felt like a weight was lifted a little bit from that game. And to your point of I just wanted to dive into this, and you said it's the best big Baylor team that you had seen. I would tend to agree with that, because as much as people wanted to celebrate the Briles campaigns this weekend, people forget they just blew those games in embarrassing fashion at the end of the season. And maybe one of those seasons you're like, we should have gone to the championship game, or the playoff at least. Like, this is BS. And that's why you blew that game. But Briles had a kind of a bad habit of blowing really big games.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody wanted to talk about that.
No.
And I think a big thing this week was finishing the battle, I think.
Yeah.
And proving that you can, just to get back to Aranda, proving that you have some gas left in the tank to maybe get this thing going in the right direction to where that team was 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I think he did a really good job of establishing that.
And look, if he wins the next one, then monkey's off his back, because the goal was bowl game.
Yeah, and that was kind of the arbitrary standard, maybe if not set by the media. Even I don't think the people in the
3-9 last year, 2-10, 3-9. They were 3-9.
Yeah, I don't think the people in the program or the powers that be would have told you that was sort of the benchmark, but it kind of was the benchmark of what he needed to do. And I think if they win and they have the opportunity, look, Houston and Willie Fritz are now competitors. Mm-hmm. They play really hard-nosed football. And all of a sudden, Kansas isn't going to roll over, but there's a couple of these games, and you've never won in West Virginia, literally never won in Morgantown, but there's an opportunity for you to go and win 8 games. That's crazy considering where we started.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it that this is a huge win. It's a huge win for them. And and look, going back to that whole thing, I do think that because Art Briles was at the game, he was there. He was clandestine as he needed to be. And I'll tell you this, I'm really glad that there was not a big push made to do that, because it's not fair to Dave Aranda, who's up against it, playing the big rival.
He already has all of these things.
Yeah, all these things going on. He was nothing but gracious to everyone, coaches, players, everybody who came back, paid for the suites and all those things, did all that. Because again, it's about keeping that establishment with the past and bridging that gap. And I do think that having those teams back and all of that let a lot of people move on.
Yeah,
because it's been hanging over us for almost a decade now of all of that stuff that's there and the animosity. And you know what? Now you can just let it go.
Hopefully.
Yeah, now you can just let it go. The one person, the only person who's still professionally hindered by any of that at all is Art Briles.
Yeah.
Which I think is really ridiculous at this point. You can't let him go be the quarterback's coach for somebody somewhere.
The offensive coordinator for, what was it, Grambling or something?
Yeah, you can't, all those things, it's stupid. There's no way for the guy to prove that he's redeemed himself without somebody letting him. It's...
it was a litany of things that happened over the weekend. And then it's Gatesville names their entire new stadium after him. Or Stephenville, not Gatesville. Sorry, Stephenville names their whole new stadium after him, and so on and so forth. I don't want to make this an Art Briles thing.
No, but
I'm just saying there was an
opportunity
to have really weird vibes.
And they did
lost that
and you know
game.
why? Because because they won. There's a catharsis. It's over. We can move on now. And every year can be about Baylor and TCU and whatever that rivalry is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about all these things in the past. The only things that matter in the past are the games that you've won and the history of the actual on the field stuff. So I think it was overall good. And again, Dave Aranda wins more and more game. Monkey's off his back. I have
You have 3 opportunities to win one. Hopefully this doesn't lead into a letdown game. You have all of these emotions of wanting to win this game. Like we saw in 2014 when they won that TCU game.
And lost to West Virginia.
And then lost to West Virginia.
Guess who's next?
The worst game that I've ever seen.
And guess who's next?
Yeah,
West Virginia and Morgantown. The world kind of repeats itself.
Yeah.
I think you saw Ted Vid did we played it on the show yesterday, of the similarities between the ending of those games with Shock Linwood's carry and then Bryson Washington's carry.
Very similar running back. I didn't put those two together. Very similar running backs too, when you think about it.
Absolutely. So, and then the only difference in the video, the kick was about the same length, really.
Yeah.
The only difference was
they were different hash marks.
Right-footed kicker, left-footed kicker. That's it. The only difference between it. So, so history repeats itself. Let's hope, for Baylor's sake, it doesn't. If you're a West Virginia fan, I'm sure you hope that it does,
right?
Because you need one. Although I think West Virginia fans are kind of in the mode now where, the hottest seat in the Big 12 entering the year was Dave Aranda, and it wasn't close.
Shifted back to Neil Brown.
I think it's Neil Brown. I don't know if there's anything he can do. Craig and Smokey have pushed back on that a little bit, Garrett, when we have that discussion.
Yeah, a little bit.
But how do you feel about it? I think you and I are kind of the same mind about it. I don't know what else he can do.
I just don't know. I feel like he's reached the ceiling there, right? If you weren't able to get over the hump this year with having Garrett Green back and the litany of running backs and all the talent you had in the trenches, and you had good opportunities at home, the way your schedule brought Pitt to you, and you had Penn State there. They've had great opportunities. They've never been able to capitalize on them. I think the statements he made about the tailgating and just coming out and enjoying it was the absolute worst thing you could say in Morgantown.
I missed this. What happened?
So he made a comment about the fans should just be happy with coming out and celebrating and tailgating, and it shouldn't really matter about the end result of the game. After you've already lost some crucial games at home, that's not going to play well. Then you have the people flying banners over. I don't see a situation where, even if he went out and won out, I don't think he can save his job there. And it's just unfortunate, but that's kind of where we're at.
Well, here's the thing. West Virginia's going to enjoy the tailgate, Neil.
Yeah.
They're going to do that no matter what. You got to win the football game. The just go out there and have fun does not fly at programs.
No.
It does not fly. And we can talk about moral victories a lot. And, there's still some moral victories to be had in college football, in college athletics. I believe that. I don't really like we tried really hard at this point. I kind of am a wins-based person.
Yeah,
but
I think that moral victories are for
rebuilding teams.
Houston.
Yeah.
Houston can have a more like that. I think that game against Oklahoma was a moral victory.
Yeah.
And now do you know what, they've taken that moral victory and turned it into actual victories.
Yeah.
You get one or two moral victories of, oh, okay, this is something. And then after that, it's not.
And in fact, it's almost exclusive to rebuilding programs.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Brown, what is it, fifth year?
Mm-hmm.
Fifth year at that program. Mm-hmm. You were picked to be a dark horse in the Big 12 at the very least.
Yeah.
Some may have picked you to. I didn't see if anybody did pick them to win it, but a lot of people were like, "Watch out for West Virginia," and then it's all just come crashing down. All that to say, they just have Baylor's number in Morgantown. That place is a house. I've said it on broadcast. I'll say it here. It is a house of horrors in Morgantown, West Virginia for Baylor. They had the most talented team that I've ever seen in 2014, at least on offense. And they go and it wasn't Oklahoma State where Bryce Petty's tripping over himself, but it's just they're not completing passes. They go from scoring 61 points to 24 points against West Virginia. And it just all comes crashing down. That game a few years ago when they had to try to get back on track, and Blake Shapen had the best game of his career in through three quarters, and then he gets his head taken off and sort of resets his career, unfortunately. And then they blow that game. All those sort of things is you have to, I think if Dave Aranda really is back on track, and like we said, I think he is, but if he really is back on track, if they go in there, it doesn't matter how you do it, but if they go in there and they win against West Virginia, then it's really, full steam ahead I believe, for this program, I think. And again, Houston and Kansas aren't going to roll over, but if you win that game, you have the opportunity to win 8 games. That just resets the deck completely.
Yeah, no, it really does. I think that's a huge, huge deal for them. When we come back, it is time to talk about the playoffs and what the rankings might be tonight. And I'm going to continue my Penn State rant from yesterday and see if Royden is on board or I get tranked. Those are the two options, is you're either on board or you trank me.
Or somebody hits you with a blow dart and drags you off.
Yeah. So you've got about 90 seconds to arrange that, but blow dart or tranked. And then at the end of the show, again, we have Peyton Soysher rankings right now. I did another video for us in which he will describe Penn State and Ohio State and what had happened to the rankings, what would potentially have happened to the rankings had Penn State actually done something scientifically impossible by Penn State standards and win a big game. Had they done that, he talks about that and how that would have affected a lot of teams in the poll. Tomorrow and Thursday, we'll have him on doing a couple of things where he breaks down what happened in the rankings tonight and how that affects it. So that's all coming up. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Royden Ogletree here on the Triple Option. Royden, is this your first day on the new? Were you still in Spain? Or you were back last week?
I was back last week.
So you were here to debut the new channel, and now we're a week into the new channel. Have you actually subscribed to the new channel?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to subscribe to the new channel. There might be opportunities for you to do things without me on this channel.
Yeah, I will do that as soon as we leave here. In fact, I'll do that right now. How about that?
Yeah, please do that right now.
How about that? It's so easy.
Show everyone how easy it is
so
to do.
Easy if I can find the YouTube app, if it will load. And then, it's called the triple option with Paul Catalina.
Yeah, which there are, now we found out 2 other triple option podcasts. Yep. One of them are seemingly nice guys, but they don't have as many subs as me.
Okay, well, the first one that comes up.
Yeah, I know what it is. I know what it is.
It's not you.
It's not
Those
me.
damn algorithms.
Yeah.
Well, this may not be as easy as I thought it was, Paul.
Yeah. Which is why we sue.
In fact, it's just throwing up video. Where is the channel?
Would you like me to just send you the link? Would that help?
Sure. Let me type in with Paul Catalina. This is great radio.
Yeah. Okay.
CAT. In fact, it's just showing a bunch of old video. Actually, here we go.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah. Let's go. If YouTube would load. This is so easy a caveman could do it.
Except Royden, sub-caveman. Sub-caveman.
Here we
So
go.
Please
subscribe.
There we go. He's on the channel, folks. He's on it. So, again, if you can open like a second browser window, I have them both open, so I can chat on either channel. So I certainly appreciate it.
Already 1,000 subscribers.
There we go. Well, there's actually 12,000.
Wait, what?
Yeah. There's 12,000, 1,000, 2,000, 12,500 subscribers currently. And one more just now.
And one more.
Yeah.
That'll put us over the top.
Do you have no idea what your one view will do?
12,000, 1,000 videos.
Okay, yes.
My bad.
So there we go. But yeah, so one of these sponsors here.
Oh, yeah.
Like Masculine, which is owned, by the way, by Oscar De La Hoya. So, fun fact. Or Alliance Bank Central Texas.
Yes.
Like all those. I'm not sure that one showing up as well. Might be washing out a little bit. But, which means I've got to give it a different color in the background. But anyhow, CFP rankings tonight.
Yes.
What do you expect? Do you expect that there will be – I don't really. I don't know if anybody has a huge case of being mad about being left out.
Yet.
I think Iowa State will not be in the top 12. BYU will be, and Boise State will be.
You don't think Iowa State will be in the top 12 as the second Big Ten team?
Big 12 team? No, I don't think they will.
Oh, Iowa State. I was thinking Ohio State. Sorry.
I don't think they will. I think that for the ACC and the Big 12, they will not do them the courtesy of letting them think they will get a second team in unless they fight their way into it, which is undefeated team in the championship game loses to a one-loss team, and then they're both in.
Yeah. Iowa State did themselves a huge disservice this weekend losing that game.
Well, and the thing is that the Big 12 teams don't get the mulligan that the SEC teams do. Mm-hmm. A&M has 2 losses. If A&M wins out, they're in the playoff no matter what. If Iowa State loses one more time and then wins out, doesn't lose again until the championship game, and they're also 11-2, they're out, and A&M is in. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Big 12, it will just be – BYU deserves to be there. It will just probably be BYU. Recency bias plays into all of these things harder than, it probably should. I'm interested to see how they try to go with this 12-team format and who they try to justify. The biggest question to me going in is where they're going to put Indiana, who's undefeated right now, in contention with Penn State and, the other one-loss Big Ten teams. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to upset a lot of Indiana alum when they're, 10th or something like that. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think right now we're going to see a lot of SEC and Big Ten teams
Yeah.
I think you'll see Miami in the ACC and no one else, even though SMU has a case for the top 12. I mean, look, SMU's only loss is to a team that's going to be in the top 12. There are teams that are going to be within that top 12 whose losses are to teams outside the top 12 who will not be punished the same way that SMU will.
Yep.
That's where this gets complicated, is that, I'm trying to I'm going to look at the what I think the rankings will be right now, and I'll tell you.
Well, it's tough because we've had this debate of, this 12-team format will allow us to not leave, deserving teams out. The problem is it's going to do exactly that. So the teams in particular I'm talking about, first of all, Alabama at 11 in both polls is a joke and a half. It is an absolute joke and a half. They could have at least one more loss, if not two, on their schedule. It's a joke and a half that Alabama's 11. Saban's not there anymore, guys. He's not there. You don't have to vote him close to the top so that you don't somehow anger the football gods. Mm-hmm. I don't know what is happening there. But the ones I'm talking about, particularly in the top 12, especially if Bama's in the top 12, which it should not be, which I think Alabama gets bumped out because you got to put Boise State in there because they are an actual playoff team. Right.
Although I would not be surprised to see Boise State out of it, and they'll be like, well, they'll be in the top 12 at the end, but they're not yet. And they'll have that.
Well, when we see this actually matters going forward because it determines these are the rankings that people start using on every broadcast, on every metric, on everything else, where it's like, well, this team beat this team was ranked inside this metric, and this team was here, and this team was here. And to not put somebody that deserves to be in that hunt is you're doing them a disservice later on down the road.
I think these should be the first rankings that we actually do have. Like AP poll and coaches poll out. Like I don't.
Well, I've said that before too. It's like the preseason rankings are nonsensical because it doesn't take into account any sort of matchup. It's all based on vibes. It's all based on like, oh, we've studied this team and who they're bringing back and the camps and everything else and what media in those towns are saying about this and so on and so forth. Went and visited this school for a practice and he says that they look really good, and then the AP sort of ranks in that. And you're never going to get rid of the AP poll. Writers would riot. They'd have a fit about it. Probably for good reason, but I'm just saying it makes no sense. Like the first poll should be after you play, maybe not this deep into the season, but after you play 5 games?
2 to 3
4
weeks
games?
at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. Iowa State lost to Texas Tech. Iowa State is ranked one spot behind Ole Miss with one less loss. Tell me what the differences are between Kentucky and Tech as far as skill goes. I'll tell you what it is. Kentucky's way worse. I mean, like, this is the SEC bias that is baked into everything that goes on. And the two teams I'm talking about that will be in the top 12 over Iowa State are Tennessee, who lost to Arkansas. What's the difference between Arkansas and Texas Tech? Arkansas is just as bad. They're the same. Like, actually, I could even make the argument that Arkansas is a little bit worse. Okay? Look, Tech has been blown out like that.
Well, Arkansas has that horrible loss to Oklahoma State, too, given how they're terrible.
Yes.
They're not good.
But look, they've maybe saved their coach's job because they're better than they were.
Saved Pittman's job.
But they're still not good, all right? Notre Dame will be ahead of Iowa State. Iowa State's one loss is to Texas Tech. I keep saying this. Notre Dame's one loss is to Northern Illinois. What's the difference between Northern Illinois and Texas Tech? Northern Illinois is worse. Why?
There's still weird name brand recognition put on. And I mean, like Ole Miss, I don't even know if that's name brand recognition in college football other than the fact that they play for the mighty SEC. But there's still like this. I remember when I remember when Notre Dame won 87 national championships in 1957 and everybody, there's still that weird, like baked in stuff. And I don't know how you solve it. You may never. That feels a little defeatist, but I think we're never going to get over this. It's almost like go back to computer algorithms for this again. Like we just need to bring back the BCS, which was inherently flawed. But
I think the BCS, and they have computer rankings, but
yeah,
the BCS should be part, like a BCS type ranking should be part of it.
Should have a weight to it.
There should be weight to it because I think you need to take.
It takes out some inherent bias from.
I think you've got to take as much out of it. I think where the humans need to come in is when you look at the computers. And have you ever tried to like make audio on AI or anything like that?
I have stayed as far away from AI as I probably could have.
Good. I've recently had to do it for a couple things because I needed a voice actor that I did not know existed.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. And then I tried making some video with it yesterday. And
it's uncanny valley. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Work. So like you get these things. So we have a client called Airwave that is like a mouthpiece for fitness, so you wear it while you're working out and helps you breathe. And so I was they don't have a video spot and they haven't sent me one. I said, well, let me see what this little machine I have does. It's the same software I used to do the ads, on the screen. So I thought, what the heck? Let me see if we can't do something there, right? And I put it in, and like you cannot, when they do it without even your script or anything, you can't, like they're like airwall, like
you
they
can't
have
run
those
it,
things.
Yeah.
That's where the humans need to come in when it comes to me to the rankings of the computer. For whatever reason, really likes this 3-loss team.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not going to put this team in over this team because the computer has these. We have to get through a couple of these weighted metrics that we put in because they help everything else. But this is the fly in the ointment. Let's make sure that that's out.
Yeah.
And so, we're not going to put that team in. Look, if they're going to apply we'll call it the Jordan Travis standard to everything now, if you get down to that, like now it's not, 4 and 5, it's, 12 and 13. If number 13 or number 12's quarterback broke his leg and you don't think they're going to do well in the playoff, then number 13 goes in.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, though, Garrett, that's the only time we're going to see that applied.
More than likely. I didn't even know that was a rule, but it was something we learned this week. Well, it was
in like Dave Bartu was on this last week, and he said, look, it's in the rules that you are supposed to take into consideration things like this, like the quarterback is out. I thought that meant like if they had lost a game and he'd been out for a couple of games, they had not lost, including the games that he was out. Like, they won those games in spite of him being out. That was where I got confused. I thought it was, okay, this team is 10-2, but the only 2 games they lost, they had to play a true freshman backup quarterback because their Heisman Trophy candidate was out with an ankle injury. Yeah. And then he came back, and they won all the rest, and they won the conference title game by 30 points. Clearly one of the best teams in the country. We can't not have them in. That's not how the rule was applied. In fact, it was never applied until it was like, oh, no, he's out now. Yeah, but they won the games without him, but they won't win these games. How do you know?
the Jordan Travis standard. It's
the Jordan Travis standard.
It's actually in letterhead on the on the rule book.
Yeah. And my hope is that somebody, like, I just want somebody else to get jobbed by that. So I'm like, well, it's the rule. I mean, we were just the first people who
just doing
had
with the canary in the coal mine.
But if no one gets jobbed like it again, then I'll be like, well, that was, Bartu did say, like, they did do what the numbers have always said.
He said it.
And he's a numbers guy. And it put me a little bit more at ease. But bottom line is,
you're still mad.
I'm never going to not be mad about it. Like, I promise you, some of the last words on my deathbed will be, we should have been in 2023. Like, that will be 2023. And then they're like, what, Grandpa? What? What about 2023? We should have just seen what happened. Just let it play out. Just see.
people really love to actually compete in big games, and a lot of people would have stayed around instead of preparing for the NFL draft.
Yeah.
He died doing what he loved. Jordan Travis actually probably, would have won the Heisman if he can. He's finally gone. And it's like, and then FSU decided to sue the ACC, and it ruined everything. Yeah. And then there was this guy who was going to eat dog shit. And he never really did it.
He didn't.
That'll be the one. It's like, he never ate the dog shit. Beep. What if you asked to eat the dog shit? To reset the curse. Toby, come here. You'll eat the dog shit, won't you? Sure, Dad. Please. Sure, I'll do it. Break the curse. Yeah. You're the only one. The inherent biases that come along with having people, are they still doing the committee as based on sort of conference representation as well too? But then the inherent biases come in as like, oh, this person went to so-and-so school, and there's some weird biases baked into there, and they're not supposed to be. But we all know from years of doing this, that's just simply not true. Yeah. And in fact, if I remember correctly, when this first started, there wasn't even a rule book on how this was supposed to take place. So we have years of doing this, one, with inherent biases baked into the people that choose the teams, two, years of standards set by a thing just picked out of thin air. Yeah. And so we're going based off of those standards. Now they finally may have, like you said, a standard set of rules and guidelines to what it's like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's more like guidelines instead of an actual law. But like, I think I don't know how you get rid of that. And I'm worried that what we will see is still what we have seen, but just in greater numbers. Yeah. Oh, well, now we get to include the Boise States of the world, and I'd have to look at all the other, teams that are doing it. But, like, to leave SMU out, I have a bad feeling they're going to job Indiana somehow, even if it's just ranking them lower than, say, Penn State or what have you. Yeah. It is going to be nasty regardless of how you look at it, and then it's still going to be like Georgia ranked number one, even though they have a terrible loss to Alabama, who you've said isn't that good anyway, and they've looked bad in several games. But yeah, it's going to be, and maybe it won't be, but I think it's going to be a bad look no matter how you slice it, because people are going to be like, well, this was supposed to solve all of our problems. I don't have that much faith in it.
It's weird to me how Alabama beat a Mizzou team that was 21st when they beat them without their quarterback, 34-0. And that win, again, if you put the Jordan Travis standard on it, it doesn't pass the smell test, right? They didn't have their quarterback. They couldn't win. So why are we, doing this?
Who was that? I'm sorry.
Mizzou.
Yeah.
Mizzou was out without their quarterback. Alabama beat them 34-0. And then everybody's like, oh, Alabama's back. No, they're not. They beat a bad team. Now, if Alabama goes and beats LSU this week, we can have this discussion fairly, because LSU is a way better team than Mizzou is. But, let's be serious here. And then Alabama, after this week, has no chance to get a real quality win because it's Mercer, OU, and Auburn, all teams that are not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, they're getting a Saban bump, sans Saban right now. But I think the top 12 will be Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, and Ohio State only over Miami because their losses to Oregon. And Miami's schedule not great. Texas, Tennessee, then Penn State, then Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, Boise State, and I think Alabama's going to make it in there, even though they absolutely shouldn't.
We're gonna besmirch the troops on here. We're gonna leave 8-0 Army out.
Yes, they will leave 8-0 Army out.
Not respecting the troops.
Yeah, their genuine hope is that they don't have to make that call.
That Army will lose to Navy or something like that.
Well, and the thing is that Army loses to Navy, but Army's already in. because that game's after they select a playoff team.
Oh, right.
So they could theoretically, Army and Navy could still play twice, although Navy has taken some losses now, but Army still,
Put Army in there, you cowards.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see an Army and Indiana game. Like, why? It seems awesome.
Hey, you know what? Let's make it 1938 again and have a blast. They should not leave. Army and Indiana playing a playoff game. No face masks. No face
Leather
masks.
helmets.
Like shoulder pads that are barely pads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerseys that rip away.
Yeah. So
I tend to agree with you. I think Boise State will be in just because they have the Janty bump, if anything else, and it's good TV, to be completely honest with you. I think
they've got to put a G5 team in there.
Yeah, otherwise it's a bad look.
Otherwise they're just like, well, the G5 team will not be in the top 12, but we have to put them in based on the rules.
Right.
That's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't trust Penn State as far as I can throw them.
No.
So, you want to do your Penn State rant?
Yeah, here's what I did yesterday. So Penn State has wins over West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin. Okay? They won all those games before they lost to Ohio State. They have Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, who could beat them. Minnesota's actually pretty good. And Maryland on the way out. Even if they're 10-2, Penn State has a good chance of being in, and they have no schedule to speak of. Yet James Franklin's going to be able to, look, Penn State, no matter what happens, is going to fall ass backwards into this playoff. It's ridiculous.
Everybody kind of saw that coming at the beginning of the season.
And now we're seeing it play out, and the interesting thing will be to see can the committee stand up and go, no, this team is not that good. Like, let's not just give the Big Ten an extra half point on strength of schedule because their TV deal is better.
Yeah.
Let's rank these teams as the biggest things they need to do is they've got to rank these teams as they are, not as they have been. That's the biggest thing we have to get through. And Penn State will be the biggest beneficiary of that, of any team that will make the playoff, because Penn State's going to make the playoff and not deserve it one bit. And I hope they get beat by Boise State 38-7 in the first round.
Yeah, everybody saw this when they looked at their schedule and said, oh, well, they don't even have to beat Ohio State to get in. Would I rather see a one-loss Penn State get in over another two-loss SEC team? Kind of, maybe, just for old time's sake, when the SEC got the benefit of the doubt in the 4-team playoff over some other teams, especially in the Big 12. But if they lose another game, you mean to tell me that you're going to put a two-loss – say Iowa State wins out, they beat BYU in the championship game. They are both 11-1 going into the final ranking.
Yeah.
They would have to turn themselves into knots trying to figure out how to not put 2 one-loss Big 12 teams in over a 2-loss Big 10 team or a 2-loss SEC team. And I'm afraid that's going to happen. And we're already clutching our pearls in the first week of these rankings, but we've seen this song and dance before, and I am kind of worried about how this is shaken out with how it is currently. And maybe Oregon runs the table and just runs over everybody on their way to being like the one true Big Ten team that everybody hangs their hat on, and Penn State falls off because of that. But I don't think they anticipated Michigan being as bad as they are and everything else. So now Penn State gets this sort of benefit from a couple of down teams and the addition of those West Coast teams into
only one of which is good.
Yeah, only one of which is good. So, I don't know. I don't have anything other than I think everybody kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, no, they did.
They looked at their schedule. They looked at how Penn State has performed every year, which is 10-2, and they're like, that may do it.
Yeah,
that's probably going to do it.
Yeah.
So
it's just nuts. It's just nuts to me. All right, before we go, Royden, today is also not only Election Day, it's the NFL trading deadline.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of news going on today.
Yeah.
Some consequential, some inconsequential. Obviously, NFL trading deadline, college football playoff rankings, consequential. Whatever happens.
Other stuff, whatever.
Who cares? The world will keep on spinning until it doesn't.
Again, we may not know who the next president is before the NFL slate on Sunday. So
Yeah. Or the NFL slate at the end of the year.
yeah.
Don't know.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Our system is silly. We are all waiting on 5 counties in Pennsylvania to tell us who our leader is.
Yep.
It's not right.
Love this, how we've set this up for ourselves.
And here's the thing, I'll tell you. If you're on either side of this argument, you have to agree. It's pretty stressful for 5 counties in Pennsylvania to be the ones that are where we don't know how people are going to vote.
Yeah, one household in Macon, Georgia.
When we could just, like, all raise our hand on one side or the
1, 2,
other.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one.
Yeah, and then, okay, well, you had more hands raised.
Yep.
Like that. It's what other countries do, but, we're America and we do it better.
People are going to be very mad about Electoral College online.
If we can add a step, we do that.
We add a little bit more bureaucracy, just sprinkle it in.
Yeah. I once, when I was early on in my radio career, I had to install all these songs into our automation system for a country station we're doing. The guy who taught me how to do it had some of the worst OCD I've ever seen in my life. And so
Can relate.
you could hit F9, it would just go to the next song. But what he had to do was he had to go all the way back out to the menu every single time. That's how I feel about the Electoral College. You're just going all the way back out to the menu and you just go F9, move on to the next thing.
Starting from scratch.
All right, here we go again. 1 vote. 2 votes. All right, everybody back in their seats. Okay, bathroom break. 3 votes. Like, that's how I feel it goes. But anyhow, it is the NFL trade deadline. There are a couple of trades, some not a big deal. Steelers traded a 7th-round pick to the Packers for edge rusher Preston Smith.
Marshawn Lattimore just got
Marshawn
traded.
Lattimore just got traded to the Commanders, which is a really good deal.
Yeah, because their
huge
defense
position of need for
good.
them. Yes.
And also the Saints, they're starting to talk about it now. I think Nick Wright was the only one ringing the bell on this for like a year, is that the Saints were going to be in cap hell. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're 2-7 and everybody's like, well, their cap doesn't really make sense, does it? You can't pay Derek Carr that amount of money.
Yeah.
They've been like deferring contracts for like years. So now you may see a fire sale. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore is the, I keep saying the canary in the coal mine, but he is sort of the starting gun of them.
We'll see. They've
got
another couple hours before they can send some other people off. Mike Williams traded from the Jets to the Steelers.
Sure.
The Jets made him superfluous after they got Devontae Adams. And hold on, let's see. Zadarius Smith got traded as well, and
Did Jonathan Mingo get traded to the Cowboys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'll help.
Zadarius Smith went to the Lions from the Browns, which is a huge pickup for them. The Cowboys made a trade today, trading a 4th-round pick for a guy they could have gotten for a 7th-round pick.
Mm-hmm. Who was a 3rd-round pick
was
on
a
his own.
2nd-round pick.
Oh, okay.
2nd-round pick last year. So that's how their math worked. Now, they really liked him in the draft process, just like they really liked Trey Lance. Well, Trey Lance is going to go. I like parts of this is where he's a developmental, like it's a long-term play here. It's not a rental. But Dak Prescott's on IR, or going to be on IR. Cooper Rush is going to be the guy breaking him in. I get the trade. I don't get the compensation. Like, that's where I'm not like, and Mingo hasn't been good for the Panthers.
Yeah.
All that withstanding with quarterbacks and all that stuff, he's still like one of the lowest ranked wide receivers in the league.
Yeah. Like Xavier Legette came in and like immediately supplanted him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all that happened. They like Deontay Johnson got traded. Nothing better last week happened for Mingo. He got traded again a week later. So the Jerry continues to Jerry. And here's the thing. Jerry Jones is the most Jerry Jones he's ever been. Sadly, he's not the most Jerry Jones he ever will be.
It's going to continue
to grow.
Larger Jerry Joneses coming in play?
Yes, like mushrooms. Just every time we kick over one Jerry, a bunch of others grow in the bullshit.
Black mold.
Yes, it's just
over under the amount of touchdowns that Jonathan Mingo scores, or the number of draft pick that you are sent for him. So 4th round draft pick. Will he have over or under 4 touchdowns?
He will have under 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay.
The Cowboys barely have over 4 touchdowns this season. I mean, and he's not a guy who came in. I think he might have a touchdown this year. And, every wide receiver in the league now gets like a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have one where it's like, this guy's in.
See
was
every
open
week,
on this
there's
play.
Like 87 wide receivers. It's just like, well, this guy, who do I pick up in fantasy? Well, this guy had a breakout week, and he'll score 3 points the next week.
Those are what we in Cowboys fandom call Miles Austins.
Oh, yeah.
And then we give them
Terrence Williams's.
Cowboys give Miles Austin a 5-year contract, and then he proceeds to destroy his hamstrings week after week after week because he had 200 yards against the Chiefs.
Hey, well, at least the Cowboys are doing something. The Texans decided to sit on their hands while their offensive line is literally the worst in the league.
They need to get 2 guards.
I understand that starting linemen aren't out there on the trade. Maybe you could trade for some of the Saints ones, but like they are out there on the trade market to be had usually if they're good enough. But then again, and Jarrett Patterson is coming back, and he was decidedly better than Kendrick, or both Kendrick Green and Kenyon Green.
Yeah.
And so that'll hopefully be
Kenyon Green's out now.
Kenyon Green's out.
So even if he were to maybe theoretically get better, it doesn't matter because he's out for the rest of the season.
So, but the problem is that now you have no depth there also. And it doesn't matter because your center and Shaq Mason isn't really that good either. So now your once generational quarterback has turned into Derek Carr all of a sudden, where he's overthrowing passes because he's afraid he's going to get buried in the dirt. I'm so sick of this team. I'm so mad. Like, they're 6-3. I've never been more mad at a 6-3 Texans team.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. What do you mean you can't block for your generational quarterback? Give me a break. Unreal. And then you're not going to go trade for anybody. Nick Caserio, you've done a lot of really good moves over the offseason. And in fact, you got this team in a position where they were supposed to be. Protect the asset. He is the best quarterback that the Texans had ever even sniffed that isn't doing heinous crimes. Allegedly. But the idea that you're going to get him buried in the MetLife turf because you're still stuck that you wasted a first-round pick on Kenyon Green, who is awful, give me a break. And also, Bobby Slowick. I'm sorry I'm going on a rant. Bobby Slowick.
No, I'm here for it.
Bobby Slowick. Adjust your game plan. They're getting through in 2 seconds. Maybe throw a screen. Maybe throw a quick slant route. Maybe run away, roll out the coverage. No, we're going to have them do a 7-step drop and let these receivers that can't get open without Nico Collins run down the field. Unbelievable. That game on Thursday night was the most frustrating game I've ever seen in my entire life. Like the last Thursday night, or like the last game they played in MetLife against the Jets, where you let Zach Wilson destroy you. Incomparable. It is.
Emory, as a Texans fan, is this how you feel as well? Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
just like they're 6-3, and it's all fool's gold because you've had to have C.J. Stroud perform magic and pull you out of 3rd and longs all season. And now the chickens are starting to come home to roost because all of a sudden he doesn't have time to throw. He has less time to throw than David Carr had to throw. They ran him out of the league.
Yeah.
You cannot do that to the 2nd overall pick that led you to the playoffs last year in his rookie season. With the same offensive line, by the way, which I don't know how that happens.
Sometimes people digress.
I mean, genuinely. I'm so mad about that.
Or they get figured out. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is that I'm not sure. Sometimes it's not the players, it's the scheme. The scheme gets figured out, and they're not ahead of it.
Yeah.
So Bobby Slowick and the offensive line coach and all that need to adjust that, which you said, not really happening right now. That's going to do it for us today on the show. We have a little fun little show for you. We're going to do the Four Corners pod. We're going to have Shahan Jaraja on the show today. We're going to have JJ Joe. We've got Evan Miyakawa to talk college basketball starting, and we'll pretend that Gonzaga and Baylor didn't happen.
I would like to.
At Baylor, it's already decided it maybe hasn't.
Yeah, yuck. That wasn't good. I don't want to one game does not a season.
Fake news.
Yeah, one game does not a season make,
No.
but stinky. That was bad.
They did not play good on defense. They did not play good on defense. So, and then because they were so bad on defense, the offense was
didn't
also
look
not
good
Yeah.
either.
And then John McClain will try to explain why the Texans didn't get any offensive linemen.
I genuinely just don't think they're out there to get, but then again, it's like you got to try something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have a lack of wide receiver depth. If Nico Collins goes down again with hamstring injuries linger, we're going long, then you're screwed because the rest of those wide receivers besides Tank Dell can't really get open. So I digress.
All right. Well, Royden needs to go take a gummy for sure.
Cigarette.
He's gonna go to a meeting.
Yeah.
Of battered Texans fans.
Oh, there's plenty of us.
They have one in the basement of the Unitarian Church over here.
Yeah.
You sit down. Alcoholics is right before, narcotics is right after, Texans fans in the middle.
Yeah, remember when they wore the Letterman jackets and they just proceeded to lose on Monday Night Football? Yeah, dude, I can't. I hate that you brought that up.
When did it start for you? It's like, oh, Rob Johnson. Just, the coffee in here is terrible, by the way.
Yeah.
Got to get better coffee. And we get the stale donuts between the two addicts meetings. This is not fair.
I might have got a light.
That's how it's going to be. That's all coming up. This is not coming up in an hour, but our show's coming up in an hour. We'll see you then. Bye.